long ago, when the earth was still young and the animals could speak the language of men. A terrible heat wave descended upon the endless plains of the Serengeti. It was the season of kiangazi, the dry season, but this year was unlike any other. The sun was a fierce, unblinking yellow eye in the sky, staring down at the savannah with a burning intensity. The rivers had retreated into thin, muddy ribbons, the waterholes were nothing more than cracked puzzles of dry earth, and the golden grass, usually swaying in the wind, had turned brittle and grey. In this difficult time, hunger was the only guest that visited every home. The lions grew thin, their ribs showing like the strings of a harp. The elephants walked slowly, their trunks dragging in the dust, dreaming of sweet acacia pods. But of all the animals, the one who suffered the most, or at least, complained the most, was Bwana Fisi, the hyena. Now, you must understand that Fisi was not just hungry, he was a creature defined by his stomach. His appetite was a bottomless pit, a dark cave that echoed with the sounds of grumbling and growling. While other animals rationed their food and shared what little they had, Fisi thought only of himself. He would dream of roasted gazelle while awake and drool over imaginary honeycombs while asleep. One hot afternoon, Fisi sat under the meager shade of a baobab tree, his tongue lolling out of his mouth, dripping saliva onto the hot sand. Beside him sat his wife, Bibi Fisi, who looked equally miserable. "I cannot take it anymore," Fisi whined, clutching his belly. "My stomach is singing a song of sadness. If I do not eat meat, real, juicy, fatty meat, by sunset, surely I will fade away into the wind." Bibi Fisi rolled her eyes. "You ate a pile of old bones yesterday, husband. The lion is eating grass roots. Stop your crying." "Bones," Fisi scoffed. "I am a predator. I am a king of the night. I deserve a feast. I deserve Nyama Choma. I deserve a pot of wali cooked with coconut milk." Suddenly, a wicked idea sparked in Fisi's mind. It started as a small flicker, like a firefly in the night, but soon it blazed into a roaring fire of greed. He remembered the funeral of the old buffalo, Bwana Nyati, a few moons ago. The animals had gathered from far and wide. They had brought gifts of food to honor the dead, piles of bananas, sugarcane, honey, and meat for the mourners. It was a custom, a tradition of respect. Fisi's eyes widened, and a sly grin stretched across his spotted face. "Wife," he whispered, his voice trembling with excitement, "I have found the answer. I know how we shall eat like kings." "How?" she asked, suspicious. "Are you going to hunt?" "Better," Fisi chuckled, a low, rasping sound. "I am going to die." The deception. Bibi Fisi looked at him as if the sun had boiled his brains. "Die? How will dying fill your stomach? You foolish animal." "Not truly die, my dear," Fisi explained, pacing back and forth, his limp disappearing in his excitement. "I will pretend to die. You will run to the village of the animals, weeping and wailing. You will tell them that Bwana Fisi, their beloved neighbor, has succumbed to the hunger. You will invite them to my wake, my matanga. Custom dictates they must bring food for the bereaved family. They will bring meat, they will bring honey, they will bring pumpkins, and when the night comes, and they are all asleep, I will resurrect, and we shall feast." Bibi Fisi hesitated. It was a shameful plan. It was a taboo to mock death. But the growling of her own stomach was louder than her conscience. "And if you get caught?" she asked. "Who is clever enough to catch me?" Fisi boasted. "I am the master of disguise. Go now, cry loudly, make it believable." And so, the great deception began. Bibi Fisi ran toward the center of the animal kingdom, throwing dust over her head and screaming in a voice that could shatter a rock. "Woi, woi, woi, gone, he is gone, my husband, the light of my life, has left us. Oh, the hunger has taken him. Bwana Fisi is dead." The news traveled faster than a cheetah, from the termite mounds to the riverbanks. The message spread, Fisi is dead. Now, truthfully, not many animals liked Fisi. He was a thief, a bully, and he had a terrible smell. However, the animals of the savannah were noble and respected the traditions of the ancestors. Even an enemy deserves a proper send-off. "It is a tragedy," said Tembo the elephant, flapping his great ears solemnly. "We must pay our respects." "Indeed," rumbled Simba the lion, "he was a nuisance, but he was one of us. Let us gather food for the widow and for the wake. We shall hold the funeral at Fisi's compound tonight." The gathering of the mourners. By late afternoon, a great procession was moving toward Fisi's home. The sight was enough to make a glutton weep with joy. Tembo carried a massive bunch of ripe, yellow bananas and huge stalks of sugarcane. Kaboko the hippo brought baskets of fresh, green spinach and water lilies. Simba ordered the huntresses to bring a freshly caught impala, fat and tender. The monkeys brought wild fruits and berries. And the bees, led by their queen, brought a heavy pot of golden, dripping honey. Inside his hut, Fisi lay on his woven mat in the center of the room. He had rubbed his fur with white ash to look pale. He held his breath until his chest stopped moving. He let his tongue hang out sideways and kept his eyes shut tight. He looked truly, undeniably dead. But inside, Fisi was dancing. The smell of the incoming food was driving him mad. The scent of the roasted meat wafted into his nose. And he had to use every ounce of his willpower not to jump up and bite the leg of the antelope being carried in. The animals entered the hut one by one, placing their gifts near the body and bowing their heads. "Oh, Fisi," cried Punda the zebra, though he didn't look very sad. "You were loud, and you chased my children. But you are gone now. Rest in peace." "He looks so peaceful," whispered Twiga the giraffe, bending her long neck down. "Usually, he looks sneaky. Death has improved him." Fisi heard this insult and mentally noted to bite Twiga's ankles later. But he remained still. Then came the one animal Fisi had forgotten to worry about. The cleverest of them all. The one with the long ears and the twitching nose. Sungura, the hare. Sungura's suspicion. Sungura hopped into the hut. He did not carry a big basket of food. He carried a single, small carrot. He looked at the pile of meat, honey, and fruit that the others had brought. Then he looked at the corpse of Fisi. Sungura knew Fisi better than anyone. He knew Fisi was greedy, lazy, and immoral, but mostly, he knew Fisi was a survivor. It seemed very strange that Fisi would die of hunger while he was still so fat. Sungura crept closer. He twitched his nose. He smelled the white ash. He smelled the familiar stink of hyena. But underneath that, he smelled something else, anticipation. Sungura leaned in close to Fisi's ear. "Oh, poor Fisi," Sungura said loudly, for everyone to hear. "It is such a pity. But, does he not look strange to you? Bwana Simba?" Simba looked over. "Strange? He looks dead." "Yes," said Sungura, rubbing his chin, "but my grandfather always told me that when a hyena truly dies, his back leg shakes uncontrollably. It is the spirit leaving the body through the toes. Look at Fisi, his legs are as still as stones. Perhaps, he is not fully dead yet. Perhaps he is in a coma." Fisi, lying there with his eyes shut, heard this. "My leg shakes," he thought. "I didn't know that. If I don't shake, they might think I am not dead and take the food away. I must follow the tradition." Slowly, very slowly, Fisi began to twitch his right hind leg. It started as a small tremble, then became a rhythmic shake. Thump, 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 against the mat. Sungura saw the leg moving. A wide smile spread across the hare's face. The other animals gasped. "Look, he is shaking," cried the zebra. "He is truly dead now." But Sungura knew the truth. Dead bodies do not take instructions. Fisi was alive, and he was playing them all for fools. Sungura felt a surge of anger. These animals had sacrificed their own meager rations to feed a liar. This could not stand. It was time to teach Fisi a lesson he would never forget. "The trap is set. Listen, friends," Sungura announced, turning to the gathered mourners. "The funeral wake is a long night. We must respect the dead by letting him rest alone for a while before the feast begins. Also, the moon is full. We should all go to the river and wash ourselves to cleanse away the spirit of death before we eat. I will stay behind and guard the food, and the body." The animals agreed. It was a sensible idea. They all filed out of the hut, leaving Sungura alone with the dead Fisi and the mountain of food. As soon as they were gone, Fisi stopped shaking his leg. He cracked one eye open, just a slit, to see what Sungura was doing. Sungura was busy. He was not guarding the food, he was cooking something. But it was not food. Sungura had brought a calabash filled with ulimbo, the sticky black sap of the jackfruit tree and the gum of the acacia, mixed with beeswax. It was the strongest glue in the forest. Hunters used it to trap birds. Sungura heated the ulimbo over the fire until it was a hot, bubbling, sticky black tar. Fisi watched, confused. Why is he cooking glue? He wondered. Maybe it is a sauce for the meat. Sungura took the ladle and approached the most delicious-looking item in the room, the roasted leg of the impala. He carefully coated the meat with the hot, clear sticky resin. It looked like a delicious glaze of honey. Then, Sungura took a large clay pot filled with the honey. He smeared the rim of the pot and the ladle with the sticky ulimbo. Finally, Sungura took 2 large stones and placed them near the food. He coated them in the glue too. "There," Sungura whispered to himself, "a meal fit for a thief." Sungura then stepped out of the hut and called out, "I am going to wash my hands. I will be back soon." He hid behind a bush just outside the door, watching the Feast of Fools. Inside the hut, silence returned. Fisi waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes. He heard the distant splashing of animals at the river. He was alone. Finally, Fisi roared, springing up from his deathbed with the energy of a young pup. The fools, they believed it. Look at this feast. He did not waste a second. Saliva flying from his mouth, he lunged at the roasted impala leg. Come to Papa, he shouted. He grabbed the meat with his right paw. He went to lift it to his mouth, but it did not move. His paw was stuck to the meat. What is this? Fisi grunted. You are heavy, my beauty. He used his left paw to try and pull the meat off his right paw. Slap. Now his left paw was stuck to the meat as well. He was handcuffed to the roast. By the spirits, Fisi panicked. It is sticky. Let go, you cursed meat. He was hungry, and he was frustrated. He decided to use his powerful jaws. He leaned down and bit into the meat, intending to tear a chunk off. Chomp. Disaster. His teeth sank into the meat, and the Ulimbo glued his muzzle shut against the roast. Now, both his front paws and his mouth were fused to the impala leg. Fisi let out a muffled scream. MMMPH. MMMPH. He tried to kick the meat away with his back legs. He brought his right hind leg up and kicked hard. Thwack. His back leg got stuck to the sticky mess. He was now a tripod of misery, hopping on one leg, attached to a heavy piece of meat. He lost his balance and fell over, crashing into the pot of honey. Splash. The honey pot tipped over. Fisi's remaining free leg landed in the sticky honey Ulimbo mixture on the floor. He tried to push himself up with his head, but his ear got stuck to the glue-coated stone Sungura had left. Fisi was trapped. He was a prisoner of his own greed. He looked like a ball of fur, meat, and broken pottery. He rolled around on the floor, gathering up dust and straw, looking less like a hyena and more like a monster from a nightmare. MMMMMPH. MMMMMPH, he wailed through his glued-shut mouth. The revelation. Outside, Sungura heard the commotion. He covered his mouth to stifle his laughter. He signaled to the other animals who were returning from the river. Hurry, friends, Sungura cried, feigning alarm. I hear noises from the funeral hut. Perhaps the spirits are angry. Or perhaps, a thief. Simba, Tembo, and the others rushed forward. They burst into the hut, ready to defend the honor of the dead Fisi. The sight that greeted them stopped them in their tracks. There was no dead body on the mat. Instead, there was a trashing, rolling, sticky abomination in the corner. It was covered in their food. It had a leg of impala stuck to its face. It was making muffled hyena noises. What is that? Asked the zebra, terrified. Simba stepped forward and let out a mighty roar. Who dares disturb the funeral of Fisi? The creature rolled over, and through the mess of glue and meat, two terrified eyes looked up, eyes they recognized. Wait, said Twiga, leaning down, those are Fisi's eyes. Sungura stepped forward, looking calm. Bwana Simba, it seems the dead has awakened, and he was very hungry. Sungura walked over to the sticky Fisi and tapped him on the shoulder. Hello, corpse, did you enjoy the appetizer? Realization dawned on the animals. The shock turned to disbelief, and then to fury. He faked it, trumpeted Tembo. He played with our emotions. He made me cry, shouted the hippo. I wasted tears on this glutton. He wanted to steal our food, roared Simba. But then, they looked at Fisi again. He was pathetic. He was trying to walk, but the heavy meat weighed his head down. He tried to run, but his legs were stuck together. He was covered in honey, dust, and shame. The anger in the room shifted. First, the monkey started to giggle. Then the zebra snorted. Then the hyena's own wife, Bibi Fisi, who had just arrived, covered her face, not in shame, but to hide her laughter. Soon, the entire hut was shaking with the sound of animals laughing. The lion roared with mirth. The elephant trumpeted with joy. Look at him, laughed the baboon, the great Fisi, defeated by a pot of glue. The moral and conclusion. Simba approached the trembling, sticky ball of fur. Fisi, the lion said, his voice stern but shaking with amusement. You have dishonored the ancestors. You have lied to your community. And you have ruined a perfectly good leg of impala. MMMPH. Fisi apologized, or perhaps he was cursing. Nobody knew. We will not kill you, Simba declared. Your punishment is already attached to your face. Go, leave this place, and do not return until you have scrubbed every bit of that greed off your fur. The animals parted ways to form a path. Fisi, humiliated and in pain, hobbled out of the hut. Clomp, drag, clomp, drag. The meat stuck to his face weighed a heavy burden. As he disappeared into the dark savannah night, the sound of laughter followed him, echoing off the hills. Sungura sat by the fire, picking up a clean piece of sugarcane. He took a bite and smiled. Greed, Sungura told the young animals who gathered around him, is a heavy load to carry. It promises to fill your belly, but in the end, it only makes you stick to things you do not want. Remember this: it is better to eat a small carrot in peace than a stolen feast in shame. And to this day, if you see a hyena, you will notice he walks with a strange limp, his back sloping down. Some say it is just how he is built, but the elders of Tanzania know the truth. It is because his great ancestor, Fisi, spent weeks scrubbing glue off his fur, and the weight of the shame never truly left his shoulders. And that is the story of Fisi Mlafi na Mtego wa Sungura. Hadithi, Hadithi, Hadithi njoo. Story, story, story come, uongo njoo. Utamu kolea, lies come, sweetness increase.